Welcome to World on Wheels. Subscribe to this channel to help it grow even faster. We're going to talk about racing. Let's start by discussing those who finish at the back and work our way up to those who finish at the top. First, I want to start with a disclaimer that I think is very important. It's not because Bortoleto retired that I'm going to say this. Regardless of whether he had scored points in this race, I would have said the same thing I've been saying before. This race doesn't mean much for judging the rookies. Melbourne, under these conditions, is something that requires experience. It's not an easy race. It's a tough one. Some drivers might have been dealing with jet lag, and the track characteristics are nothing like the usual tracks on the calendar. It's a street circuit, so it's not worth wasting energy judging the rookies because it's very possible that those who didn't perform well here might do better in the next races. Got it? Let me open the standings here, and you can follow along with me. Let's start from the bottom. Isaac Hadar. Man, I was going to say that Hadar retired on the first lap, but he didn't even make it that far. He retired on the formation lap. Again, it's a horrible track condition, very difficult, with many unpredictable points. Those who watch the Formula 3 and Formula 2 races know that the track was unpredictable. With any tire, at any point, you could end up flying off. It happened to others too. People are being harsh on Hadar because he's not a driver who's confirmed for Formula 1. Many people, including me, think he should do another season in Formula 2 to gain more experience. It gives the impression that he's not ready for Formula 1, and a weekend like this hurts. So, don't be too harsh on him right away. He's not a bad driver, but he has a way of being promoted early and having to prove himself, especially with Yuki Tsunoda as his teammate, who performed really well. People were also harsh on me because of the tier list I made of the drivers, but you have to understand that the tier list was based on the 2024 results. It's like if I told you in 2020 or 2022 that the McLaren, which was running in P18, would be world champions in 2024. How would you react to that news? Things are dynamic. I'll mention this again later when I talk about some drivers who improved a lot based on the 2024 results, and some who got worse. That tier list still holds in my opinion, and we can do another one for 2025 later. There's not much more to say about Isaac Hadar. Unfortunately, he retired before the first lap. The next races in China and Japan are also not great tracks to prove yourself. It's a very tough start to the championship, but I hope Hadar improves. You could see he was really upset, and even Hamilton's father went to console him. Of course, we joke about drivers, but we don't want anyone to be destroyed personally. I joke about Oliver Bearman, but he was really down, and we feel for him too. It was a very small result compared to what we expected from Bearman. Anyway, we'll talk about him later. 19th, Jack Doohan. He retired on the first lap after crash. The track was unpredictable and very dangerous. This is to show you that even experienced drivers were caught off guard. Those who lasted longer in the race deserve credit because it was like a demolition derby. There's not much to say about Doohan except that the pressure is on. I think everyone will disregard this debut. But if we look at Briatore, it's like the little aliens in * Lethal Company * closing in. 3 days left, 2 days left, 1 day left. 18th, Carlos Sainz Jr. This was sad. During the safety car, Sainz parked in a strange way. He later said on the radio that he had some excessive torque, which could be an issue with the power unit. It might have been from the electric motor or the combustion engine. We don't know. Unfortunately, we'll have to wait to see a better debut from Sainz. 17th, Fernando Alonso. It wasn't a great weekend for Aston Martin. They had a tough preseason, and Alonso was another victim of the unpredictable track. He had a small steering input on the curb, which caused him to lose control. It's a condition where you can't expect anything other than the dry line. The dry line is your safety, and everything else is a danger. Alonso mentioned bad luck in the interviews, saying the accident happened out of nowhere. There's not much to criticize Alonso for. Anyone could have had that happen to them. 16th, Gabriel Bortoleto. Our Brazilian driver retired on lap 47 along with Liam Lawson. Bortoleto was one of the victims of the chaos that happened around lap 41 when Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris went off. Verstappen took the lead, and then it started raining again. It was complete chaos. Even those on intermediate suffered a bit from the changing conditions. In Bortoleto's case, it wasn't because he's Brazilian that I'm defending him. but it was a strange crash. Credit to him for getting the car out of the wall, but the rear right suspension collapsed in a very strange way. Sauber had mentioned earlier that he had brake issues, but they thought they had fixed them. It wasn't fully explained, but it seemed like a random crash. Bortoleto learned a lot in this race. He was running consistently, but experience matters. You can't expect him to perform like someone with 15 years of Formula One experience. So, don't be too harsh on him. He made it to Q2 in qualifying and stayed alive during the race, which is an achievement in itself. Let's wait and see how he evolves. Liam Lawson: if drivers were food, Red Bull would be starving. Lawson's situation is tough. Unlike other rookies, he's not exactly a rookie. Combining 2023 and 2024, he has almost a full season of Formula One under his belt. In 2023 and 2024, he performed well, sometimes even matching Tsunoda in qualifying and race pace. But in 2024, he's a driver who, in my opinion, has more potential than Tsunoda, but is not performing as well. The Red Bull second car curse is real. Every year, whoever is in that second car underperforms. Some people said Lawson's setup wasn't right, and the lack of time in free practice hurt his adaptation. But the fact is, he's not a rookie. He should have performed better. He should have capitalized on the chaos around lap 41 when he was in 7th, but he didn't. On lap 47, he made the same mistake as Hadar. Hadar has much less experience and, in my opinion, is a lesser driver than Lawson. Many drivers succumbed to the pressure this weekend, and we can't draw too many conclusions, especially about the rookies. But Lawson has the weight of having races under his belt, and more was expected of him. He'll have to prove himself in the next races, which are also tough tracks like China and Japan. It's a very difficult start to the season for these guys. 14th, Oliver Bearman. In general, it was a disaster of a weekend for Haas. I don't even remember which safety car it was, but Haas decided to stay on intermediates when everyone else switched to slicks. They probably thought the rain would come back, but everyone had the information about when the rain would arrive. Haas ended up a lap down, and Bearman finished a minute behind. It was a broken strategy from Haas, and Bearman didn't perform well either. He didn't crash, but counting the free practices, it was a nervous and amateur performance from Bearman. We expected much more from him in 2024. He didn't perform badly in the opportunities he had, like in Interlagos, but in Azerbaijan and Saudi Arabia, we saw a different level of driver. We expected more from Bearman, and it's already costing Haas. Haas doesn't look like they'll perform well because Ocon also couldn't extract much from the car. Ocon complained a lot during the race. The Haas duo finished 13th and 14th, the last of the finishers. It wasn't a good weekend for Haas. 12th, Yuki Tsunoda. What bad luck for Tsunoda. I felt really bad for him. He was having a spectacular race, potentially finishing P6 or even P5 because he passed Leclerc at one point. It was an amazing race from Tsunoda. Since the end of 2024, he's been showing improvement. I mentioned this in the tier list, and people were harsh on me because I said he wasn't all that. I don't hate Tsunoda. The issue here is mentality. If he continues to deliver good results and has a strong mentality, he's a top driver. But if he only performs well and has a weak mentality, it's worth nothing, especially in the Red Bull environment, which crushes mentalities. Lawson, who has a strong mentality for this environment, suffered this weekend. So, don't put Tsunoda on a pedestal. This is an analysis that has to be made over the season with the results of this year. Unfortunately, Tsunoda finished 12th, suffering from all the chaos between laps 41 and 47. That safety car was really unlucky. 11th, Pierre Gasly. He was having a good race too, and those who survived the chaos were mostly the more experienced drivers from the top teams, except for Sauber, where Jules' crash was somewhat random. Gasly almost scored points, but was caught by the two Ferraris and Oscar Piastri, finishing 11th. It was a consistent race from Gasly, and I think he has the potential to be in the points regularly. Alpine showed they have a car capable of that too. It wasn't a bad performance from Gasly overall. 10th, Lewis Hamilton. It's hard to judge his race. It wasn't a great race for Ferrari, but it was fair. Hamilton still lacks race pace and qualifying pace compared to Leclerc. Leclerc has more familiarity with the car and the team. You can hear in the radios that Hamilton sometimes lacks the intimacy he had with Mercedes' strategy. He says it's comfortable, but it's different. Ferrari even had a great radio moment with Leclerc, where he said there was probably a leak in his cockpit, maybe from the drink system, and the engineer replied, "Maybe it's water." That says a lot about Ferrari's communication. Hamilton will struggle a bit at the start of the year, but 10th place is a bit bitter for Ferrari debut. Again, with such adverse conditions, let's wait for a more Formula One-like track and better conditions to judge. 9th, Oscar Piastri. I felt bad for Piastri. He clearly didn't have the pace to fight Norris, but he was there. In the chaos when it started raining and everyone was on slicks, he went off the track. Unlike Norris, he couldn't recover the car and ended up stuck in the grass. It was spectacular that he managed to get out of that situation. He made some great recoveries, passing Gasly and Hamilton in a very brave move, one of the best overtakes of the year for sure. He finished 9th, which is sad for the Australian fans who never had an Australian on the podium. It wasn't a bad race from Piastri. He secured some points. 8th, Charles Leclerc. It was a bitter race for Ferrari. They stayed out one lap too long, probably to avoid traffic in the pits and an unsafe release, which happened to some others. It wasn't a total mistake from Ferrari, but it was a bad situation. A bitter debut for Leclerc. 7th, Nico Hülkenberg. He gave a masterclass today. He taught a lesson to those who criticize him for taking Bottas' time in qualifying. In the race, calmness and experience matter. Hülkenberg gave a lesson in stability. Sauber managed the race very well, and Hülkenberg knew how to handle the tires. A phenomenal result for Hülkenberg, 6 points. It's also good for Bortoleto because his team did well. 6. Lance Stroll. Good result, but we have to agree that it was mostly luck. Stroll capitalized well on the chaos. He had a quiet race, but he didn't make mistakes. Stroll may not have the potential people expect given the investment in him, but he's an experienced driver. He's been in Formula One since 2017, so he's dealt with these situations before. We have to remember Stroll's value as a driver who can bring points. He may not shine, but he can score points. That's what he did today, securing 8 points for Aston Martin. That's what we expect from him. 5th, Alex Albon, another driver people criticize me for calling average. You have to remember that at this point in the championship, I analyze Albon based on his 2024 performance, where he was scared and diminished compared to Franco Colapinto, who sometimes outperformed him. The parameter we had for Albon in 2022 and 2023 was of a good driver, but in 2024, he seemed average. Maybe he wasn't as good as we thought, and his teammates were just really bad. Now, in 2025, in the first opportunity, he's performing really well. Williams seems to have a good car this year. Finally, after 17 years, they have a car that can compete in the midfield. Credit to Albon and Williams. They've been performing really well. I hope they continue to develop the car. I have a lot of faith in James Vowles. 4th, Andrea Kimi Antonelli. This kid drove really well. As the race went on, he got more comfortable with the tires and the dry line. He developed a championship-level recovery drive, going from 15th or 16th to 4th. He capitalized on many mistakes, which is expected, but the way he did it was heroic. I've always said that if Mercedes put an 18-year-old in the car, they know what they are doing. 3rd, George Russell. It was a quiet race for Russell. He passed unnoticed, but he was consistent, picking up positions here and there. 3rd place is a good result for Russell, but I think is more about bringing results home, even if not in the most spectacular way. Good weekend for Russell and Mercedes. 2nd, Max Verstappen. Verstappen is a 2025 Australian Grand Prix. He drives incredibly held at Melbourne's Albert For those who say his titles were easy and he only won because of the car, marked a please. In the last 2 laps chasing Norris, with his battery turning into milk, Norris had to push to keep him behind. Multiple incidents. Verstappen was catching performances. He drives incredibly well, but Red Bull isn't in great shape. Verstappen complained a lot about the car's balance, saying it was understeering and oversteering. There's work to be done in the Red Bull garage, where drivers familiarize themselves with Lando Norris. There's a lot of talk about Norris being a driver who doesn't have what it takes to be a champion. In 2024, he was thrown into a championship fight against Verstappen, who was already a three-time champion and became a four-time champion at Norris' expense. But it was Norris' first year with a car capable of fighting for the championship. It's not like he had several years of experience fighting for titles. I don't judge Norris for his mistakes in 2024 because it was his first year with a competitive car, his improving and becoming a more complete driver. I think he has less potential than Piastri in the long term, but is a more complete driver right now. Norris dominated the race, even when he made a mistake and went off the track. Piastri also went off, but Norris managed the situation intelligently, pitting to the right tires. There were moments of emotional intelligence in this race, especially with Verstappen on his tail in the last two laps. In 2024, I would have feared for Norris, but is becoming a more secure driver. We might see a spectacular Norris in 2025. That's it. Guys, much to the delight we talked a bit about each driver's race. This is a simpler video format, meant for us to chat and get the video out quickly. If you stayed until the end, I'm really happy you were here. Consider subscribing to the channel, leaving a like to help me out, and leaving a comment to boost engagement. If you want to support this project, consider becoming a member. Let me know your thoughts on the race or any interesting points in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.